Test. Génial. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this too early in the morning conference. I'm Sandy, Managing Director of Spark News, and please welcome Alma, Project Manager in Spark News, and to tell the truth, my favorite project manager here. So let's start. I need your help, yes. Let's start this conference. And impACT, that's the word. That's the main theme of the program our conference belongs to. And that's especially why we are here today. Because of and in the name of impACT. So to have impACT, what does it mean? For most people, it means to do less bad. And for us, it really means to do more good. And it's really important for us to make the difference. And we really do prefer to use the word positive impact. I have to confess, at Spark News, we are not from your industry. We are not from your inner circle. We come from outer space. We are one of the French positive impact pioneers. That means that all we know is about ecological and social transition. For 12 years, we have been making all our possible to accelerate the transition, to make the shift to a new model of society happen. And as you can see, there is still work to be done. As you experience, we are facing now to many ecological and social issues, such as global warming, biodiversity loss, but also economical inequality or discrimination. So our way of living, based on unlimited exploitation of resources, is no longer compatible to the world we live in. Okay. And at Spark News, we are convinced that the creative and cultural industries can have, should have, a huge positive impact on society. Because you have superpowers. So yeah. Be aware of that. And please, Alma, let us know more about these superpowers.
Absolutely, Sandy. So indeed, the first superpower you have is what we call the green production or sustainable production of your activities. From a French perspective, for instance, the sector emits 1.7 million of tons of CO2 equivalent. And here I'm not counting the broadcasting or distribution side, or either the spectator traffic, for instance. So you are an industry, but not just any industry. You have the power to demonstrate that if it's possible for one film to reduce its impact, environmental impact, then it is possible for any other sector of the society. The second superpower you have is the narratives. You create, you produce narratives. Each day, your films reach millions of people, and they have the possibility to create unique connection and bringing viewers together around the same values, the same stories. So you have this power to tell stories. And more than stories, we use the word narratives because they shape the imagination of viewers. They shape their way of living, their way of thinking, the way they're representing the world. So, of course, there is many films today that talks about dystopian futures and catastrophic futures. The question is here, the point here is not to question these films and to criticize them. They are part of your integral creativity power. But there is one question that we need to have in mind is that how can we create a society, build a new world where the future can be more respectful of planet boundaries and human beings if we are not able to imagine this world, if we can't imagine it. This is why we need new narratives, we need new values, new beliefs, new frame of references to propose to the viewers. And this is where your superpower lies in films, in this fact that you can create films. And these films can inspire and accelerate the shift toward new models of society. However, we don't want and we don't need all films to be engaged. Ecological and social issues don't have to be treated as the main theme of the fiction or in a dogmatic way. They can be just in the background, shown as a normal fact, and still make us react and provoke a change. The most important is to preserve, of course, everything that makes the success of a film, everything that makes the success of its narrative arcs, and also to guarantee its success with the audience, of course. So now I will give you some example. For instance, Maria, you can see on the slide, won the EcoProd Prize this year, and it's at Cannes Premiere. Efforts were focused on sets on recycling and reusing new, not new, but any materials as possible. Avatar is not well known for its production side, eco-production side, of course, but it criticizes the violence of multinational and contemporary politics in confrontation with nature and the people living by different models of society. Then you have La Promesse Verte, for instance, that addresses in a very conscious and engaged way all the economic and human rights issues associated with oil palm trades. Whereas in Don't Look Up, if you see the film, there is not once the term climate change that is mentioned. However, it triggered more discussion about it than the IPCC report. Of course, you all know Brokeback Mountain, so this film brought LGBT relationship in the mainstream cinema, and it won a Lion at the Venice Film Festival. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a very interesting film because it deals with the relationship between mother and daughter within immigrant families, and also transgenerational trauma. Captain Fantastic is about alternative models of society, and last but not least, sorry, Okia generated Google search increasing by 65% about how to go vegan, and half of the crew became vegetarian, vegan after the making of the film. So the point here is that there is not one narrative, there is many narratives to explore. Just many ways to exploring new avenues, taking on new creative challenges, and without this, very important, without ticking boxes or making films that looks just all the same.
So for all these reasons, we are going to spend a short hour together dedicated to inclusive and sustainable fictions. And as everything is connected, we need a large and a deep awareness, and also general action in the entire profession. That means from scriptwriters to broadcasters, included, of course, directors and producers. That's why we now welcome 4 inspiring professionals that each are involved in their own way to help the industry to move forward. So let's just welcome.
Totally. So Leslie Thomas, you're the first. So you are the General Secretary of the CNC. You are in charge of the public establishment's CSR strategy. It is absolutely necessary to have you on our panel today. Now let's welcome
Bonjour.
Paola Vaccaro. Paola, you are a scriptwriter and a producer. You founded Pinball London, a production company to bring a multicultural and intersectional perspective into films. And I believe the company has garnered over 90 awards, including 3 Lions at the Venice Film Festival. Brilliant. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Antoine Barrault. You are a director and scriptwriter. You directed several short films, documentaries, long features, and you set up a production company, House on Fire. You are member of the SRF, la Société des réalisatrices et réalisateurs de films, with which you recently created a podcast that talks about ecology and cinema practices. So we'll come back to that later, but well done. Thank you. And Mercedes Fernandez Alonso. You are the managing director of the Torino Film Lab, which supports professionals through training, development, funding, and networking activities for series and films at various stages of development. So glad to have you with us.
So let's start, and I will start with you, Leslie, and with a special French session. Nous sommes en France. So,
Et je suis un représentant de l'État.
and you're an official representative of a very, very big French institution. So, protocol first. And for those who need some explanation, just let's share at the end a special translation, okay, in small committee, okay? So try to improve your French right now,
Yes.
okay? Yeah. So Leslie, vous êtes la représentante d'une grande institution française qui joue un rôle clé dans l'industrie française du cinéma. Vous êtes en plus en charge de toute la stratégie, toute la démarche de RSE, comme on l'évoque dans les organisations. Vous avez là très très récemment introduit ce qu'on appelle l'éco-conditionnalité des aides, depuis 2023 et plus fortement depuis cette année. Dites-nous en plus, puisque c'est un vrai levier sur ce Superpower, Sustainable Production, je fais un petit mix, comment ça marche, quel est l'effet sur les professionnels et est-ce que ça va, dans quelle mesure ça va vraiment contribuer à terme à faire diminuer l'empreinte carbone de l'industrie?
Bonjour à tous. Effectivement, le Centre national du cinéma et de l'image animée exige désormais des contreparties aux aides publiques, donc les aides qui sont octroyées pour l'ensemble des projets cinématographiques audiovisuels que nous accompagnons. Donc pour donner un cadre, c'est 700 millions d'euros d'aides par an, donc d'argent public en tout cas injecté dans le secteur. Et depuis le 1er janvier 2024, nous exigeons pour toutes les aides à la production la fourniture d'un double bilan carbone. Un bilan carbone prévisionnel au moment où on dépose son dossier de demande de financement, qui correspond en fait à une estimation de l'empreinte carbone du film à produire, et puis un bilan carbone définitif, une fois que l'œuvre est achevée, de manière à ce qu'on puisse mesurer la trajectoire entre mon projet initial et ce qui a été réalisé au final. Et dans cette trajectoire-là, ce qui nous intéresse, c'est justement quels sont les leviers que les producteurs ont mis à l'œuvre en termes de transport, de décor, de mobilité, d'énergie, de logement, de catering, enfin voilà. Donc c'est vraiment ce chemin-là qui nous intéresse. Et ça a une autre vertu, c'est que ça va nous permettre d'avoir de la data et de pouvoir dire les courts-métrages en France, c'est quoi le plus bas, c'est quoi le plus haut, et donc on a une idée moyenne de ce que ça peut représenter. Idem pour les séries, idem pour les documentaires, idem pour les longs métrages, tout en sachant que comme nous sommes dans une économie du prototype, difficile d'envisager de conditionnaliser les aides aux résultats. Voilà, donc c'est ça la logique dans laquelle nous nous sommes inscrits. Alors en 2023, on l'avait proposé de manière volontaire. On n'a eu que les militants engagés, très moteurs, qui se sont emparés de cette nouvelle conditionnalité des aides. Depuis le 1er janvier, c'est tout le monde, ils n'ont pas le choix. Et donc on commence à avoir des bilans carbone prévisionnels et définitifs. Et ça va nous permettre, je pense, en 2025, d'avoir déjà un premier panorama sur l'impact de la production nationale sur 12 mois.
Bon, la dynamique est en marche, c'est un petit peu trop tôt pour en tirer tout de suite des enseignements. On voit bien que c'est une démarche justement d'amélioration continue et de captation de data. On se pose tous la question, puisque l'industrie est avant tout créative. Est-ce que cette démarche de production responsable, de quelle manière est-ce qu'elle n'a pas un effet quand même quelque part sur la création, sur les scénarios, sur le contenu, puisqu'à un moment ça interroge le nombre de décors, les lieux et même les comportements des personnages principaux, les mobilités, etc.
Alors, deux choses. Le CNC, en tant qu'institution publique d'État, ne peut pas intervenir à l'endroit du contenu artistique ou du contenu éditorial d'une œuvre, et c'est extrêmement important puisque nous sommes là pour défendre la diversité de la création et qu'en aucun cas il y a un art officiel qui serait promu par le CNC. Cela étant dit, ça c'est la ligne rouge pour nous, donc on n'intervient pas sur les contenus. Ce qu'on ne peut que constater, par contre, et tu ne me démentiras pas, que on a de plus en plus des professionnels, des auteurs, des scénaristes, des réalisateurs, des producteurs, qui ont une attention particulière au contenu, c'est-à-dire produire durable, c'est une chose, mais être cohérent en termes de contenu, c'en est une autre. Et donc, oui, nous aurons forcément sur le marché des films qui vont juste s'attacher à la forme, c'est-à-dire comment je réponds à des obligations de réduction de mon impact du point de vue de la fabrication de l'œuvre, mais on sait très bien qu'il y a aussi toute une série de professionnels, et les exemples qui ont été donnés tout à l'heure, même s'ils sont internationaux majoritairement, on pourrait faire la même chose avec des films français, on sait très bien qu'on a de plus en plus de contenus qui sont cohérents, enfin, on peut même parler de films à impact pour certains, qui ont du coup qui font des choix artistiques ou des contenus, qui ont des contenus qui sont tout à fait inscrits dans la démarche de réduction de l'impact carbone ou de l'impact environnemental ou de protection de la biodiversité ou de protection de l'environnement. Enfin, on voit bien qu'il y a toute une série d'œuvres qui émergent et qui témoignent en fait de l'engagement de leurs auteurs. Donc ça, c'est un élément extrêmement important. Et puis, il y a un dernier point sur lequel je voulais revenir, c'est que si effectivement, nous, puissance publique, on ne peut pas être dans une œuvre de commande, c'est pas le cas d'un certain nombre d'autres commanditaires, en l'occurrence, je pense aux chaînes de télévision ou aux plateformes, qui, elles, peuvent faire œuvre de commande, ce qui n'est pas le cas du CNC.
J'aime beaucoup ce mot de cohérence. Je pense qu'on en a tous besoin. Let's switch in English back, because it was just a little session dedicated to conditionality, environmental conditionality of state aid, and of course we will share after the conference more information if you need, okay? And let's go with Alma and another French people, Antoine, but speaking English because there is no protocol for a director. Okay?
Yes, Antoine Barrault, I'm turning to you now. You are director.
Not in your headlines, no protocol for that.
You are a director, a scriptwriter. You are a member of the SFRF. Sorry. I would like to ask you the very same question. Do you think that sustainable production is restricting creativity? And how do directors react to sustainable production standards?
Among the SRF, what I'm trying to do is really to first start off the conversation with other directors, and that's really important because almost no director in France is in this direction of eco-responsibility. Very few are, maybe like 10 or 20. What is responsible at the moment are what the big enterprises are more responsible because they have obligations, like HBO, Canal+, M6, whoever is a big company has obligations. Bless you.
It's like a cat.
It's part of the protocol.
It's your own protocol. Yeah, but in the cinema world, most enterprises are not big enterprises, so they don't have the obligations. So since they don't have it, they either have a sensibility or they don't, and most of them don't, and directors don't in the great majority. So what we're trying to do at the SRF is to ask the question: would you be okay to go in that direction or not? Would you be okay to start off the conversation, etc., etc.? But yeah, you're right. The biggest fear is, oh my God, what about my artistic creativity? And this is like a huge ball of fire of panic. But like any huge ball of fire of panic, like when you're a kid and you don't want to go downstairs in the house, when you finally go and switch off the light, oh, that's fine. So how to do that? By dividing it into small pieces of fear, little spheres, and also by saying that now, at this moment, most of the measures that you can activate, let's say that, into making your film are not measures that will impact either the story or the look of your film or anything. It will not impact anything that you can see on screen. Like, I'm a director, so usually the production will ask me if I want a car for myself. Well, I can say no to that and be in a van with the rest of my crew, which I did in my last film. And guess what? It improved the relations with my crew because they liked it. They were happy that I was in the same van. Same thing for the hotel. I'm the director, and my last film had a big movie star, so she was in this huge fancy hotel, and obviously they will book me in the same hotel, unless I say no. And again, I go with my crew. Again, it improves relations with my crew, because they were all happy with that. So that's not something you can see on screen. Whether you eat vegan or veggie or whatever, you don't see that on screen. The big problem, that's another big ball of fire of panic, food. That's a big issue. But again, the only thing that's important is that it's good, that it tastes good. People have a problem with veggie food when it's bad. And we're in a transition moment. So like in any transition, not everything is good yet. Not everything is, perfection. So, yeah, it's true. Some caterings will just remove the meat and say, it's veggie. No, it's not. It's just bad food. So if it's going to be a veggie menu, then you have to hire a good catering that will know how to do it and taste good. And no one will have a problem with that. And let's stop with the big myth of I don't know, grippers or whoever who need like beef and meat. Most of them today are women, and they really don't care.
I don't know if most of them.
Maybe not most of them, but No, some do, of course. Like in any
But
movie.
most grips and electricians are not women yet.
Well, and maybe not most, but in France, it's
Many,
the proportion is really growing and a lot higher. So same thing with your crew. Then also for directors, I hear producers who think for us, like, oh, they will want this car, they will want this privilege, they will not want to change that scene. Maybe they won't, but ask them. And sometimes they'll be okay with it. And if some are okay, that's a change. And you know, year after year after year after year, more will be willing to do stuff. More will be understanding that it's not something that you can see on screen. Some of them more and more will understand that, like any form of obligation, first it hurts, and then maybe it will, lead off to a better idea, which will be creative. Maybe the whole mindset has to change, especially for location scouting. You go into, you go to Rhône-Alpes or any region in France, and usually the tradition was, okay, this is the location I want, and now I need, a cave and a castle. And they will tell you, oh, I have this great castle there, and I have this great cave there. And we had no problem with that for ages. Now, let's think different. If this is my main set, what do you have in that circle of 10 kilometers? That changes everything. It changes everything, and it's another way of looking at places, of looking at stuff. And if you do need that castle, then we'll go to that castle for 2 days. But it changes everything, that the whole shooting, or 80% of the shooting, will be in that location. That means less driving, less everything. For a big film that I was talking to the production director the other day, and she told me just the driving, just the fuel was twice the kilometers of the Earth, twice for a film. It's just nonsense. And we had no problem with that for ages, but now we do. So, and again, you don't see that on screen. Just divided by 2, by 3, by 4, by 10. And it doesn't, maybe someday the catastrophic state of the world will lead us to other story and to something that you can see on screen. Not today. Today, what we can do will not impact creativity, and if it does, maybe it will improve it. So that's the good thing. Just one last thing about because I saw the poster for Avatar, and I know it's a big movie, and we love big movies. I have no problem with big movies. Just like any other movie, just cut your CO2, just But I know they did, but the problem I have is that they sort of mimic a film about ecology, but to me it really pushes the idea of a planet B, which is something you really do not want to do. So to me, the film is a big problem in terms of soft power. Stories are soft powers. To me, it's a big problem because it's a huge audience. Everybody saw it. You saw it. I saw it. Everybody saw it. And to me, it pushes the worst idea that you can push.
So let's talk about narratives. This is my next question. So in the story you write, you direct, in the story you see told by your peers, does telling more inclusive and sustainable stories necessarily mean making militant, engaged films, or are there other ways to do so?
I know some people will be working on the story aspect of making movies. For the moment, I'm not, because I know this huge panic also, and I'm trying first to like climb the mountain of the making of the movie, whatever it's about. I'm trying to really get directors to be willing to talk about how we make films, about cars and food and location scouting, about planes, about actor treatments, about stuff like that, privileges, about anything, and that's a huge task. And so I think, to me, the content, the subject is really important, of course, but it's going to be, on my angle of directors, it will be second angle. But when I see a film like Maria, I was part of the jury who gave the prize to the film. It's just, to me, it's the perfect example of a film which it's a really political and militant film, but it's about sexual violence. And though it's not about ecology, it's about sexual violence, but it was made, I mean, it's incredible what they did on that shooting, especially art direction, and it's wonderful what they did. And also what they say, and most films, and I know Leslie knows that too, most films who are today in an ecological responsibility making usually end up with the conclusion of the shooting was a lot more pleasant. The people were nicer with each other. They liked the idea of a collective experience. And today, the suffering on a workplace is a major health issue on the planet. Another one, not ecology. So if by, thinking green, you can also improve the suffering at the workplace, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and thank you to talk about social issues too. And Paola, we need your eyes. Yes, you are engaged as scriptwriter, you are engaged as producer, both sides. And so why and how are you committed to fictions that deal deeply with social issues such as diversity, inclusion, but also ecological nature, ecology? What kind of challenges does this require?
So I think some of the ideas our colleague brought in here tell us there is a creativity, right? There is an idea of a director wants this, maybe if we don't give him that, that's better because it saves X, Y, and Z, and I completely agree. But there are also the underlying reasons as to why that appears. So I'm just gonna kind of bring it down to earth a bit in that way. Because what I don't believe is in this narrative where if you are good and I am good and you are good and she is good, we're all good. Because I actually think that all this virtue signaling is really hurting us. If you ask me in 2020 if the virtue signaling was so evident, I would say, no, wait a minute, these people really, we all want to change this world for real. But 4 years later, I can see more and more generations putting up signs about causes and things with zero understanding, I mean -10, I would say even. And all of this creates a really unsustainable idea of the world and who we are as humans. So if you ask me today, 4 years after 2020 and the reckoning, I think we are more disconnected, more divided, and less aware of the deep knowledge. What went wrong? And so what went wrong, for example, is I love him. I want to hire him, really. I do. As a producer, a director who says what he said, my God, it's my wet dream. Not really, but you know. But my directors or the directors or the majority of the directors or the big directors, let's say, the culture of directors starts, and this is very me, sorry, I generally criticize things where I'm in, starts with a festival like Cannes, where the producers are not even in the catalog. We make the film, the decisions, the money, you're not gonna get a room, but we are not even in the catalog. The festival invites the director, but not the producer. So I'm here making the environmental decisions, and yet I am the least important partner. And so how can I be responsible for all these changes that I know we need to make when the culture sustains this idea of this generally mostly men, sorry, the numbers are there, I'm not lying, mostly, I'm not saying all, mostly, that says you are God. And so how do you tell that person, sorry, you know, we're all staying at the B&B around the corner and you're not going to have a 5-star hotel. So I love directors like him and I wish they all were like that. But there is a culture that doesn't support that. So how can we do this? I think it's a shift of culture. I think it's a shift of understanding. I think we're very complacent and complicit when it comes to how we're going to change things. In 2020, again, all of these programs, diversity and inclusions, were all entry-level things. And so these people enter the space at a very junior space. How do they go up? I think things will change if, just going to say, our friend here from the Sciences had 3 mentors at a senior level that can actually change things. I think things will change if Tom Rothman in Sony will get me as his mentor, you know, as his mentee, sorry. So what I'm saying is, we do things down here. We put it on social media. We go out there saying, you know, this and that, and then you ask, from where to where, and how, and they're like, I have no idea. Like, okay, fine. So it's a lot of virtue signal. It's a lot of collectivism. It's a lot of, from the comfort of my sofa, I do X, Y, and Z. And then off you go. And I'm going to criticize this as well, because when you talk about what can we do, it's resources. This is an event of inclusivity. My mother tongue is Spanish. I love French. I really love hearing it. And I really hope I could be speaking in Spanish, because it's a lovely language as well. But for that, we will need to be using maybe technology to have a ticker tape where she can speak in French, I can speak in Spanish, she can speak in Spanish as well, Castellano, actually, from Spain, and our gentleman here could be speaking in his wonderful English or French as he wishes. And everybody in this room will have an inclusive experience, because some of you here may have a neurodiverse thing that I don't know. You may not be able to hear well. You may not understand my English, her French, whatever. And so, well, what is keeping us away from doing the permanent translation at the same time? Resources. You don't have the money. Why we don't have a person here doing signaling? Because that will be money. That will be more. So there is a moment where, for this industry to really change, there will need to be specific aims, grants, money, really, resources, that when you, as the organizer of this event, says, listen, it's an inclusive panel. I really want my deaf people to understand this, because otherwise it's an oxymoron. We're doing inclusive, you know, it's like I want deaf people in my crew and I'm just going out with a megaphone calling them. It's like, no, they don't hear, so you need to do something differently. And I am sure, and I know that it's not that you're not doing this because you're an evil person that actually wants to be, you know, completely against what you're preaching. No, I know you're not doing it because, and not that you didn't think about it, but because it's out of boundaries for you, what you can do. It's out of reach for you can do. But because if you knock at the Palais and say, hey guys, you know, by the way, this is about inclusivity, can you get me some signaling and, you know, deaf language thing and the ticker tape here that translates with AI, doesn't even need, you know, to pay anyone in a little booth permanently, because this is what it is about. They will say, sorry, we're not doing that yet. Because we put the money in that little sign there that is really fantastic and it cost $1 million to do, and then in 2 weeks that is going to be in the garbage bin. So it's a bigger conversation. And I think the bigger conversation, and I need to be very wary and all the time looking at the surrounding of how all this, I am so virtuous about this, doesn't stop us from looking at the reality. I went vegan for a bit, and veganism gave me insulin resistance. And so veganism doesn't work for me. And that doesn't mean that I want to destroy the planet. So all this shaming and all this, it's something that we need to start being able to really discuss this without thinking there is a binarism, one side that's wrong, one side that's right, and in the middle, the desert, not even the ocean, it's dry. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And Paola, you are taking part to this cultural change. You try, you help professionals to understand, you organize some kind of workshops.
Yeah.
What happens during this kind of workshops? How do you manage
I hit people.
to provoke, yes,
That's the job.
to create a kind of change? And a before and after, it's not so easy.
Yeah.
And
No, of course not.
And you stick to the realities.
Yeah.
So concretely, do you have some
Yes.
examples first?
Yeah, no, of course. I always think that you know, you really need to talk about certain things with people and give people the space. When you give people the space to dissent, when you give people the space to think and criticize things, but you also respect, and you, of course, I mean, somebody coming and saying, oh, you know what, my opinion is that all women should die, then, of course, that's not respecting dissent and giving space. I'm talking about, okay, why do you want women to die? And kind of be able to hold into that and kind of listen and try to understand. Sometimes there is no logic. Sometimes there is just brainwash. But I think when it comes to narratives, I really don't want a world where we need to preach. I really don't want a world where we need to tell people what's right and what's wrong. What I want is a world of people that are more aware and have critical thinking, and that if a film is extremely celebrated by its many critics and many juries in festivals, and it has explicit sexual violence against a woman, it is the public that decides, I don't need this. And the film maybe will flop. And so that film will not be made again. I don't want to curtail that director's or writer's ability to write about that. But I want people to be very aware that seeing that kind of imagery so explicitly, so exploitative, so in your face, will do something to your brain, and it will really affect the way you see women. And thank you. So I don't want to talk about the artistic value of seeing more and more violence against women on screen, and yet we are. So do I want to stop that? No, I just want to get people to really think about this. And I have a trust that when you're able to really get deep into conversation in something that works really, really deeply, people will say, not really. I don't want to see any more of these Lolita stories. You know, that's a POV from an old guy looking in almost a very perverse way to this and that. I mean, I'm done with that, man, really. Give me another thing. But I want the public to define that. I want the audiences to define that. I mean, there is a lot of bad stuff in the world that I don't necessarily go into the dark web to look for it. So, you know, yeah, I wish it didn't exist because that goes into crime and other things, but this is mainstream or professional cinema world. So I think the more we're able to really have discussions of substance, we will run away from more from brainwashing, from, you know, box ticking, you know, blah, 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 and I don't know what the right hand does, when the left hand does. You know, it's about integrating humans, understanding our contradictions as well, you know. Again, this panel is a contradiction in that way, you know what I mean?
Full humanity.
Yeah,
full and
exactly.
complete humanity.
But that doesn't take away the value of this panel with all its flaw, that somebody deaf here could say, oh, I went to this panel that was about inclusivity, and, you know, they didn't have a sign language. And it could happen. It has happened in the past, in panels that I was. And we were all like, oh my God, they said it. you know. It was a bit like that. You know, I've been in panels when we were talking about something, all virtuous people up here going, and then somebody said, excuse me, you're talking about diversity and you're all German. You know, and it's like, we are also here. And poor German people, I'm just saying German because I could be saying French, but they're French, so it would be like an attack. So you know what I mean. And so I think we need to look at common sense. We need to really engage with humanity, really understand that we're all work in progress, that the shaming and naming is really hurting us as people, as humanity, and that we need to learn. And if there's something I would love to see a panel to discuss the flaws of Avatar, which maybe I haven't thought of. This idea of plan B, and because of that being bad, blah, blah, blah. I was like, when he said it, I was like, oh, wow, I never thought of it. I'm not a fan of Avatar also. But it's not my kind of movie. I remember the first time I watched the one where I had to steal the CDs for the screenings, and I remember throwing the DVD out of my window. I'm not joking. I was pregnant also, maybe it was me. Anyway, but it's a fantastic piece of work. It's just not my cup of tea, don't get me wrong. But I love that conversation, deep, nuanced conversation. But we're not ready as humanity. I think that we've gone backwards. We really have divided things into me, the right one, and you, the terrible one. And this goes across the board for ecology, for inclusivity, for politics. And then people say, oh my God, how on earth the right wing is coming? And you're like, man, there is nothing in the middle. How is it not going to come? I mean, there are people that are like, I cannot talk to anyone. You know, I like meat, but I also want to save the planet. How do I go? If I cannot go with the ecologists because they're like, oh, you're not vegan, you're not here. And if I go to the meat killers, they're like, oh, the ecology is terrible. So where do you stand with humans? You know?
Thank you, Paola, to wake up and to talk about humanity.
To your point, I just want to add that at the SRF, the philosophy of what we're trying to do is exactly that. Like we published a text saying exactly that. We are not the first. We are not the best. We just want to be part of that conversation. We are late. Directors are late in the conversation.
Yeah, but if you start shaming people, you're late.
No.
It's like,
Wait, no.
I'm sorry, I disagree.
No.
It's like, you're not late. It's never late when you're coming to the table.
Oh, no, but it's great.
You're here, let's
I'm
eat.
not shaming anybody. We're talking about ourselves.
No, but you know what I mean. If you say to someone, if you tell me,
it's not someone, it's
you're
to
late.
us.
A beautiful
look at my own
example
family.
of the tandem, the famous tandem and key tandem for the cinema between
But it's
director and
just
producer.
to say that, and this tandem is absolutely key to the making of a film. But, to me, it's really important that it comes from this duo of producer and director, and it's really important, I think. To your point.
But last but not least, I'm turning now to Mercedes. So Mercedes, at the Torino Film Lab, you've incorporated sustainable production issues into your training courses for a long time, and recently you have addressed new narratives and trained scriptwriter on the matter. So could you just tell us what happens?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe to introduce to the audience what Torino Film Lab is. We work with writers and directors. We support them while they are writing their scripts. This is our focus. We have also other activities, but this is what it's interesting here today. So at a certain point, we wonder what can we do to help as an organization to help the change? How can we take responsibility in issues like climate change? And we started training professionals on green production, so how to have more sustainable sets. But it was much more interesting the storytelling side. Because in some way, all these issues is not a checklist, because usually what happens, what they said before, the writers freak out if they feel like an obligation to speak about some issues. And that's right. I mean, I am totally with them. The thing is that these issues have, this is a new area of content. So what we do in Torino Film Lab is to try to create a mindset shift and to see how, for example, the climate crisis can be a potential for storytelling. For example, you can engage young audiences. Now we are always complaining young people don't go to the cinema. For example, this is something that touches the young audiences, so you can also engage this new target. And I think that there is a whole potential about these issues. It's an opportunity to really speak about our world today, that the cinema sometimes is not reflecting. We are like behind. We are speaking about a world of 20 years ago. We are not speaking about the world today. I mean, this is really one of the main issues of our years, and we are not, it's not there. It's not on the screens. It doesn't mean that you need to speak directly about that, but in some way, it has to be reflected. And then the people also feel like they are watching something that's interesting for them. So in Torino Film Lab, we have a program in collaboration with the Screens of Tomorrow to work with writers and with story editors who are interested in exploring this potential. So how can we benefit from a storytelling point of view of this new area of content?
Thank you. And so in your training courses, precisely, how do you tackle the creativity freedom?
Well, we have a methodology which is listening to the writer. So we ask to the writer, what is a story that you want to tell? So we will never say to a writer, you need to say this, or you need to say this in this way. What we do is listening. So what do you want to tell? How do you want to tell it? I will help you then, when I understand what do you want to tell and how, I will help you to do it. So this is the methodology. It's never saying you should do like this, like that, you should say this, never. And then you really have a powerful story.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mercedes.
Welcome. Thank you, Mercedes.
So now it's time to conclude. We had short time, but thanks to an institution, a producer, scriptwriter, director, producer, scriptwriter, and innovative lab vision, we managed to set the scene for those very complex but passionate issues. And maybe if there is one thing that you have to take away from this conference, is that more and more professionals are getting aware, and then engage on those issues. And maybe if you are here today and if those topics are interesting you and you want to know more about it, we strongly recommend to go to the CUT conference, CUT, the Cinema United for Transition, tomorrow at La Plage des Palmes.
At 10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock.
In the morning.
It's good coffee and it's a lovely place. Huh?
Yeah.
So to go further on this discussion and to meet other professionals like us, like this, thank you again, professional here, testimonying. So, meantime, practical tool exists. One of them is the Screen of Tomorrow guide, and now let's have a quick overview of this tool. And we are welcoming Lois on stage.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Maybe we can...
Yeah, we can go.
Thank you. Okay, so the Screen of Tomorrow guide. Thank you. So the Screens of Tomorrow guide is the result of 1 year co-construction process alongside launched with Get the Moon and Spark News. We gathered more than 100 professionals from the entire industry. professionals that are aware and willing to do fictions that are more sustainable and more inclusive. That's the starting point of this movement. On the next slide, you will have an overview of all our partners when it worked. And we had French screenwriters. We had also big production companies like Canal+ or Banijay, but also independent producers such as Oecourt. In this slide, fantastic. And also distributors like France Télévisions or TF1. Some of these audiovisual leaders has already implemented this tool, the Screens of Tomorrow Guide, in their sustainability charters. That means that hundreds of professionals in France are already using it, and we are very proud. And last year, here at the Festival de Cannes and also at the Venice Production Bridge, we launched the international version of this guide. And we were very happy to see that some professionals, associations, and federations were interested in it and already shared it with their networks. So for us, that's very positive and very positive for this great movement. And okay, more concretely, what is the Screen of Tomorrow Guide? So it's composed of a set of questions and a resource center, all available online in French and in English for free. And through all these questions, the guide interrogates all writing automatisms in the stories and opens up the possibility to include sustainable and inclusive elements in the storylines without restricting creativity. Because we, as Spark News, are not here to tell you how to write, how to produce, how to distribute your fictions. We're just here to ask some questions without giving any answers. And we spend a lot of time with professionals during the process to be really careful about the words we're using on those questions, to be sure that this guide will be non-dogmatic and will be adapted to every format and every subject of fictional narratives. So let's be clear, this guide is not meant to impose one single vision of the future. It's just here to ask those questions without giving any answers. And as we think that each trade can have its own impact and its own role to play, we published 3 different versions of the guide, one for the writers, one for the producers and directors, and the last one for distributors and broadcasters, to create this great discussion between all team members on one project. So, to be really concrete, what do we have in those questions? So, the questions are exploring 3 main topics, the first one being the narrative issues. The first set of questions here is about the character's profile, and we explore all the topics about representation of diversity, disability, or sexual orientation, for example, and also the link between stereotypes and the character's construction. Secondly, we address more the question of the character's quests. Are those characters in your stories aware of any environmental or social issues, and how does this awareness impact their relationships, their goals, or their representation of happiness, for example. And then we address in the third set of questions in these narrative parts, the question of the model of society represented. Which lifestyle can we see on screen? Which relationship with consumption? And what is the role and place of nature, of flora, fauna, living beings in the storylines? So that was it for the great narrative parts, followed by the second part about sustainable production, which we saw is very, very important, and the third part about sustainable promotion and impact campaign. I think you have everything you have to know about the guide in a very short time. Now, don't hesitate to download it, don't hesitate to use it in your own works, don't hesitate to share it around you. That's very simple. You have here the QR code ready to be scanned. And if you want to find out more, to discover a bit more the guide a bit deeply, please meet us tomorrow at Producers Club, 3 p.m. Thank you.
So see you tomorrow at 10 with Cut, and tomorrow at 3 p.m. in order to have the guide, to discover it deeply, and to use it. Okay? Thanks you.